Ethan had never imagined his quiet life would end this way, standing in the middle of a dirty black market alley on a forgotten moon, listening to chained prisoners cry for help. He had only come to the old scrapyard district to look for spare parts for his broken engine stabilizer. He was a simple mechanic, not a fighter, not a hero. He fixed cargo haulers and small farm droids. He minded his own business. But that night, the universe pushed him another way. He heard the sound first. A small, weak voice, not like the rough shouts of traders or the hum of speeders passing overhead. It was soft, trembling, like a whisper trying not to be heard. He followed it, moving quietly between stacked crates and flickering street lamps. The air smelled of rust, damp metal, and burned oil. The deeper he went, the darker it became. Ahead of him was a wide metal gate, half open, leading to a storage hangar. He heard voices inside, loud laughter, the sound of credits being counted. And in between, that same frightened voice, his mind told him to turn back. This was not his problem. Criminals like these were dangerous. He could be shot, disappeared, no one would even know. But his heart pulled him forward. He stepped inside the hangar, staying in the shadows. There were 5 men in armored jackets, drinking and laughing around a central cage made of energy bars. And inside the cage were 3 captives. 2 were older, shaking with exhaustion. The third was a child. She was small and thin, her skin a pale silver color with faint purple marks under her eyes. She wore no shoes, only a torn cloth around her shoulders. Her wrists were held by glowing shackles. She did not cry loudly. She did not scream. She only looked down as if trying to disappear. One of the traders hit the cage with a stick to make her stand. "Look at this one," he said to the others. "Rare breed. If we take her to the core, nobles will fight over her. Could sell her for 10,000 credits easy." The others laughed. One tossed a bottle at the cage, making the girl flinch. Ethan's hands curled into fists. His legs felt frozen. His throat was dry. He had never been in a fight before. He had no weapon on him, but something inside him snapped. He could not walk away. He quietly backed out of the hangar and ran around to where the power cables connected to the building. He had worked around machines all his life. Power generators were nothing new. He found the main cable feeding the lights and energy bars of the cage. He looked around for anything he could use. Nearby was a metal rod covered in dirt. He picked it up and swung it against the cable housing until sparks flew. The power cut. The hangar went dark. The traders inside shouted in surprise. Ethan ran back through the entrance and straight for the cage. His heart pounded so hard he could barely hear. He could only see the small girl inside the cage, blinking in confusion as the glowing barrier around her disappeared. One of the traders aimed a blaster in Ethan's direction. He ducked behind a crate. Shots rang out, lighting up the dark. He crawled low to the cage and reached in. "Come with me," he whispered. The girl hesitated for a moment, staring at him with wide silver eyes. She did not know who he was. He could be another captor. But something in his voice made her move. She crawled toward him and grabbed his arm. He pulled her out just as one of the traders came running toward them. Ethan threw a broken gear wheel at the man's face. It hit him hard, making him stumble. He grabbed the girl and ran. His lungs burned as he sprinted through narrow streets, dodging trash piles and broken machinery. Behind them came angry voices, then the roaring sound of speeders lifting off. They were chasing. "Can you run?" he asked the girl. She nodded silently, though her legs shook. He held her hand tightly and pulled her toward his old speeder bike parked near the scrapyard entrance. It was a rusty machine, barely held together with leftover parts. But it started. He lifted her onto the seat behind him. "Hold on," shots fired from behind. The ground exploded near the bike. He pushed the accelerator as hard as he could. The bike shot forward, bumping over rocks and trash. Wind blasted against them. The girl clung to him tightly, burying her face against his back. They raced toward the desert edge of the moon. There were no towns in that direction, only endless sand and broken metal from crashed ships. But Ethan knew a place, a small cave he sometimes used when he needed quiet. He had once hidden some tools there. Maybe now it could hide lives. The speeders behind them grew closer. Ethan swerved left and right, kicking sand into the air to blind them. One shot tore through the back of his bike, making it rattle. He kept going until he reached a steep dune. He braked and jumped off, pulling the girl with him. They climbed up the dune on hands and knees. The sand was cold under their fingers. On the other side, hidden between rocks, was the cave entrance. He pushed her in first, then followed. They crouched inside, breathing hard. Outside, engines roared past. The criminals did not see them and kept flying. Slowly, the sound faded. Silence returned. The girl sat shaking, hugging her knees. Ethan removed his jacket and wrapped it around her. She looked at him with careful eyes, not speaking. He kept his voice soft. "They won't find us here." She stayed silent. He could see deep exhaustion in her face. She had probably not slept or eaten properly in days. He searched his pockets and found a small packet of dried fruit. He opened it and handed it to her. She sniffed it carefully before eating slowly, as if unsure she was allowed. After a while, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft and clear. "Why did you help me?" He hesitated. He did not have a grand answer. "Because someone had to," he said. "Someone should have helped you before." She looked down. "No one ever does." He sat beside her but kept a little distance so she would not feel trapped. "What's your name?" She was quiet for a moment, as if deciding if she could trust him. "Lyra." "Lyra," he repeated. "I'm Ethan," she nodded slightly. They sat in silence again. Wind blew outside, making soft howls around the cave walls. After some time, her eyes started to close. She fought it, trying to stay awake, afraid it might be a trick. Ethan noticed and spoke gently. "You can sleep. I'll stay awake and watch." She hesitated one more moment, then lay down, still wrapped in his jacket. She curled up like a small animal hiding from danger. Within minutes, she was asleep. Ethan stayed awake through the night, listening for engines, footsteps, anything. But nothing came. He watched the girl sleep. In the faint moonlight coming through the cracks, her face looked peaceful. She was just a child. No one should have to suffer like that. He felt anger again, but this time mixed with determination. In the morning, Lyra woke slowly. She looked surprised to see Ethan still there. He smiled slightly. "Told you I'd watch." She sat up. "Will they find us?" "Not if we move smart," he replied. "I know someone who can help. An old friend. He once smuggled refugees. He won't betray us." They left the cave at dawn, traveling on foot across the sand until they reached an abandoned shuttle station. Ethan broke open an old maintenance shed and found a small hover cart. It barely worked but could carry them. They rode for hours until they reached a settlement far from the scrapyard district. Ethan brought Lyra to his small home at the edge of the town. It was nothing more than a metal hut with 2 rooms, old tools hanging on the walls and a small stove in the corner. But to Lyra, it looked like a palace. She walked slowly inside, touching everything with wide eyes. "You live alone?" she asked. He nodded. "Been that way for years." She looked at him curiously. "Don't you get lonely?" He gave a small laugh. "Sometimes." She stood silently for a moment, then said, "I won't make you lonely." He felt a soft warmth in his chest at her words. He made her food, simple soup and bread. She ate carefully, as if afraid it might disappear. Over the next days, she slowly relaxed. She began asking questions about everything. About human tools. About the stars. About why he kept spare parts in boxes labeled with strange symbols. She followed him everywhere, watching how he worked. He showed her how to use a wrench. She laughed when she dropped it, the sound light and clear. Every night she asked if the bad men would come. Ethan always answered, "Not while I'm here." And every night she believed him a little more. But Ethan knew this peace could not last forever. The criminals would keep searching. He needed to find a way to send her far away, somewhere safe. He contacted his old friend, a pilot who owed him a favor. After 2 weeks, the man agreed to meet secretly near the canyon pass. When Ethan told Lyra she had to leave, she went silent. She stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. "You're sending me away?" He knelt in front of her. "Lyra, if you stay, they'll find you. I can't protect you from everything. But where you're going, you'll be safe. There are people who can take care of you." She shook her head. "I don't want others. I want you." His chest tightened. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "I'll be okay. And you will be too. You're strong. Stronger than you think." She clenched her fists. "Then promise me something." "Anything," he said. "Promise you won't forget me." He smiled sadly. "I could never forget you." "Then I'll come back," she said firmly. "One day." "I promise," he nodded. "I'll be waiting." She hugged him tightly. Her small arms wrapped around him as if she never wanted to let go. Ethan held her just as strongly. He wished he could keep her safe forever. But she deserved a life beyond hiding in metal huts. The night she left, the sky was clear. Stars shone brightly. Ethan watched as the ship took off. Leora had been walking for hours, her feet sore and her mind restless. Every door she knocked on brought the same result: suspicion, fear, or laughter. She had been doing this for 3 years now, never stopping, never giving up. People called her strange, a wanderer, or even crazy. But Leora had a purpose. She wasn't here for wealth, for fame, or for power. She was here for him, the human who had saved her child all those years ago. The one whose face she could barely remember, but whose kindness had changed her life forever. 3 years ago, Leora's ship had crashed on Earth. It had been a peaceful mission, a simple scouting trip to learn about other worlds. But something went wrong. The ship's engines failed, and she had no choice but to land on a planet she barely knew. The crash left her injured, her child Saren hurt even more severely. They were alone in a dense forest, surrounded by strange sounds, alien plants, and creatures that eyed them with curiosity and hunger. Every step was painful, every movement difficult. She didn't know how much longer she could survive. It was then that a human appeared. Ethan. He had been walking in the forest, perhaps on some routine hike, or maybe he had been looking for adventure. He was nothing like the humans she had imagined from the stories she had read before coming here. He was kind, gentle, and careful. When he found her and Saren, he didn't scream or run away. He didn't call anyone or try to capture them. Instead, he knelt down, checked their injuries, and started working to save them with whatever tools and medicine he had. He spoke softly, in a language she could understand but had never heard before. His voice was calm, full of empathy. "Don't worry," he had said. "I will help you. You'll be okay." Leora had never felt such relief. In that moment, she realized that not all humans were cruel, not all humans were selfish. Some could be extraordinary. And in her heart, she knew that this human was different. He had saved her child without hesitation, without asking for anything in return. When she asked how she could repay him, he simply smiled and said, "Take care of him. That's enough for me." But then, as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone. By the time she was able to leave the forest safely, he had disappeared into the night. The only thing he had left behind was a tattered military jacket, worn and slightly torn at the edges, which Leora had kept. She had been carrying it with her ever since, a symbol of hope and a guide to find him again. For 3 years, Leora had been searching every human settlement, town, and city she could reach. She learned to disguise herself as a human, using makeup and clothing that hid her alien features. People still stared sometimes, but she had grown used to it. Every door she knocked on, she showed the jacket and asked, "Do you know who this belongs to?" Most humans shook their heads, some laughed, and a few even called the authorities. But she never gave up. Every no brought her closer to the yes she was waiting for. Saren had grown stronger over these years, but the child still needed care. He was curious about humans, fascinated by the small planet and its strange habits. He learned their language quickly and asked endless questions. Leora would answer patiently, always keeping the search for Ethan alive in her stories. She told Saren about the human who had saved him, about the kindness that had changed their lives. Saren didn't fully understand why they were searching, but he trusted his mother completely. One cold evening, Leora and Saren arrived at a small village tucked between green hills. The village was quiet, almost untouched by modern technology. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the streets were empty except for a few children playing with wooden toys. Leora felt a strange calm here. Maybe it was fate, she thought. Maybe this was the place she would find him. She knocked on the first door. An old woman opened it, her hair white as snow, her eyes sharp and curious. "Good evening," Leora said politely, holding the jacket up. "Do you know whose this is?" The woman squinted, looking at the worn fabric. "I've seen many jackets like this," she said cautiously. "But I don't know this one. Are you looking for someone?" "Yes," Leora replied softly. "A human. He helped me and my child years ago. I must find him." The woman shook her head. "I'm sorry, child. I've lived here all my life. I don't know anyone like that." Leora smiled gently, thanking the woman, and moved to the next house. She kept going door by door, hour after hour, rain starting to fall, soaking her hair and clothes. Her heart ached, but she refused to stop. Each knock was a promise to herself, a promise to Saren, and a promise to the human who had saved them. By the time night fell, she had knocked on every house in the village. Some doors had slammed in her face, Some had offered food and shelter for the night, but still no sign of Ethan. She felt tired, but the thought of giving up never crossed her mind. She couldn't. Not after 3 years of searching, not after all they had been through. Saren tugged at her sleeve. "Mother, maybe we should rest." "I'm tired." Leora looked at him and smiled. "We will rest, little one. But tomorrow we continue. The human is out there. I can feel it." They found a small inn at the edge of the village. The owner, a kind man with gentle eyes, agreed to let them stay for the night. He didn't ask many questions, only smiled when Leora offered him a small gift from their travels. A strange, glowing crystal that Saren had found in the forest. He accepted it without suspicion, placing it carefully on the counter. In their small room, Leora looked at Saren as he slept, the child's breathing soft and even. She held the jacket close, running her fingers over its worn fabric. It had been so long, but she remembered the warmth of Ethan's hands, the softness of his voice, the courage he had shown without thinking twice. "Mother," Saren whispered in his sleep. "Will we find him?" "Yes, my child," Leora whispered back, pressing a gentle kiss to his forehead. "We will find him, no matter how long it takes." Outside, the rain fell steadily, drumming on the roof. The village was quiet, but Leora knew the world was vast, full of doors she had yet to knock on, streets she had yet to walk, and humans she had yet to meet. She didn't know what the next day would bring, but she had learned one truth over these years. Patience and hope were stronger than fear and doubt. As she drifted to sleep, a thought lingered in her mind. Maybe, just maybe, tomorrow would be the day the right door opened. And when it did, everything would change. The human who had saved her child would see her again. Saren would meet the one who had unknowingly shaped his life. And their story, which had started with tragedy, would finally begin a new chapter. The night passed and the storm began to fade. Leora woke before dawn, checking the village streets through the small window of the inn. Everything was silent, peaceful. She dressed quickly, ruffled Saren's hair, and prepared for another day of searching. With the jacket in her hand and hope in her heart, she stepped outside. The village was waking slowly, smoke curling from chimneys, birds starting their morning songs. She began to walk, knocking on doors once more, showing the jacket, repeating the same question she had asked thousands of times over 3 years. "Do you know whose this belongs to?" Some said no. Some shook their heads, confused by her insistence. Some smiled politely and closed the door. But Leora never let it bother her. Every no was one step closer to yes. Every closed door was one step closer to the door that would finally open. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, casting warm light on the cobblestone streets. Leora moved from house to house, village to village. She spoke with farmers, shopkeepers, and children. She learned their routines, their habits, and their fears. She shared stories of her home planet, careful not to reveal too much, careful to earn their trust. And in her heart, she never stopped believing. The human who had saved her child was out there, waiting for her to find him. She didn't know how she would recognize him, but she knew that when the time came she would. And as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the village, Leora felt a spark of something new, something that had been missing in her long journey. A feeling she hadn't felt in 3 years, a whisper of hope that the search might finally be over. But she didn't know which door. She didn't know which street. She didn't know which human. All she had was the jacket, her determination, and the promise she had made to Saren. No matter what, they would find him, and the search would continue day after day, door after door, until the one who had changed their lives stepped forward again. Because some bonds, no matter how unlikely, no matter how far apart, were meant to be found.